Hey, John Gilroy here. In a world full of theories about artificial intelligence today, let's talk about applying AI to increase DoD readiness. Hit the music, Manny. Welcome to the Federal Tech Podcast, the podcast that connects you to federal technology leaders. My name is John Gilroy, and I will be your moderator. Our guest today is Rob Bocek, Chief Revenue Officer from Virtualitics. Rob, you ready to go?
Let's do it, John.
Hey, I would be remiss if I didn't tell our audience we are recording this from National Harbor at the Air Force Space and Cyber Conference. Kind of an exciting conference, isn't it, Rob?
Sure is, John. It's great to be back, and hello to all your listeners again. Remains a critical time, and I think the Chief said it best this morning in his opening remarks that readiness remains a top-tier, number one priority across the United States Air Force and, frankly, across the Department of War. So we're really excited to come back and talk about what Virtualitics has been up to since last time we spoke.
Yeah, I got up early this morning, and I went down, I listened to the keynote speaker. It was General Saltman, he looks like a movie star, by the way. He looks great up there. He's the Chief of Space Operations, and within 3 minutes, he used these famous 3 words, focus on readiness. I think that's what you got tattooed on your arm or something, isn't it?
Just about. This is what Virtualitics lives and breathes every day. How do we attack those gaps in readiness? Very, very complex problem set. And as we talked about last time, mission readiness does remain one of the most defining challenges across the U.S. military. Mission capability rates, are in the low 60%, far below threshold. And, from military hardware and assets, aircraft, ships, but personnel as well. From the readiness requirements of where we need our forces, again, well below minimum threshold. And so these are all areas that we are absolutely applying cutting-edge AI technology today, and we're seeing some pretty significant impact. So, Rob,
I think you put together a little conference on readiness. What's this? Frontiers of Readiness? What was it all about?
Right. So, Frontiers of AI for Readiness. So we talked about this on the last show. We just hosted this about 3 weeks ago. It was actually out at Caltech in Pasadena, California. And it was really a great event. Really, the thrust was to bring together industry leaders, bring together Caltech faculty that are focused on really some new cutting-edge techniques around AI. We brought together operators and end-user mission community leaders, even all the way up to the 3-star participation with the Deputy Commander at Global Strike Command. And then we had the investor community, members of various venture capital firms, and even some policymakers, former Representative Chris Stewart, who was a defense appropriator and Intel Oversight Committee member. Everybody plays a part when it comes to readiness, and so we really wanted to bring together all these leaders and really activate the conversation. This was really our call to action. It was a catalyst, as we've talked about, to take this beyond the ethereal and really talk about how do we put things in play that are tangible, and we can actually see hard impact, hard ROI.
Well, Rob, I think it was called the Frontiers for AI for Readiness Summit. Now, there's a guy you probably know called Simon Sinek, and he always says start with why. So I'm going to ask you, so why'd you put it together? Why Frontiers?
Yeah, it's again, I think this is one of these new technology areas where there's a lot of talk about it. There's a lot of promise, but I think what we're seeing from an adoption standpoint, it's still very light. A lot of pilots, a lot of small Pathfinder efforts, but when we're trying to get to speed and scale, that's where I think there's some reluctance to really lean in. And so we hear this a lot at Virtualitics. I know many others in the space do as well, is there needs to be, there's an appetite for learning, understanding how do we really push the bounds of what AI can enable, how should we look at utilizing AI to solve some of these problems. And there really is a desire to want to come together, to partner closely with industry and really unpack what these use cases are, these problem sets, and really understand how we should align on outcomes.
Well, it's one thing if you run Rob's Donut Shop and you speed innovation and something goes wrong. Another thing if you're dealing with the Air Force or the Space Force. So the question is, what kind of guardrails can you have? When my kids were little, we take them golfing and have the guardrails so it had a pretty good score, So is there a guardrail concept with AI in the government too?
Yeah, a really great question too, John. I think this is really important. AI is unlike other types of technologies in the case where AI is best served when you let it scale. Now, to do that, obviously, we have to have trust in the models. We have to understand how the model is learning around the data. But one of our Caltech professors there, who actually has spent almost a decade on autonomous systems and utilization of AI in that regard, talked about the worst thing you can do is try and tamper or control the AI models. What we need to look at is setting guardrails, put guardrails in place, and make sure that all the security protocols are there, but then let the models learn and let them learn at scale. That's the quickest way we get the return on the investment. And I think it was actually a really rich dialogue, series of demos and whatnot, things that some of these professors and faculty are working on, and not just in the DoD or the federal space, but really in the commercial market where other industries have moved forward at speed with these technologies. So again, it was a great day of learning. And I just also will back up and say we had members from across United States Air Force, the Marine Corps, Space Force, and even quite a bit of representation from the U.S. Navy. So it was really a great event. We also had some senior leaders from industry. Lee Madden, who runs the national security business at Microsoft, really excited to have him and others participate in the discussion throughout the day.
I mentioned earlier, we're recording this right in National Harbor. It's near the river. If you get on a little boat and go up the river, you run to this place called the White House, right? Yeah. Well, back in 1948, there was a guy named Harry S. Truman, and he had a little thing on his desk, and it said, "The buck stops here." So I think that's got something to do with leadership. So I'm tossed to you here. So let's talk about leadership and AI. From a military perspective, what about leadership, and why is this so important?
Yeah, great question too. I think what we're seeing, again, this is a pivotal moment. Our adversaries are moving forward. Like China, they are moving forward at speed, at scale. They are not slowing down. They are not waiting. The Chinese are not looking at pilot programs and Pathfinder efforts. They are fully embracing the technology to the fullest extent possible. For us to be able to compete and surpass that requires bold, decisive leadership. Critically important. One of the comments that Lieutenant General Lutton made, who's the Deputy Commander at Global Strike Command, really excited to have him participate, was that where they see AI is really serving as an extension of the operator. We're not looking to have AI replace the human or human cognition, but really to amplify human judgment and provide that context, that explainability into these massive data sets, very complex problem sets. And so with that, in order for leaders to really move forward in this space, they have to be able to trust the technology and understand how AI the models are being trained on the data and why those recommendations are being surfaced the way they are. And I think where we've seen the most success at Virtualitics, and I think other companies can probably say the same, is it's those leaders that are willing to lean into the problem, embrace the problem set, understand that they may be accepting a little bit more risk because the technology is relatively new, but it's also well-defined. They understand that there's got to be an explainability component, but that's where we're seeing the greatest return. It's those operational commands that are not waiting for those top-down directives to flow at the enterprise level. They have a problem that they understand acutely, and they're willing to apply AI to try and solve those problem sets. And during that process, there's a tremendous amount of learning that happens, John. And so, again, part of why we wanted to have this FAR Summit was to exploit those learnings and be able to share those broadly across the Department of War.
So, Rob, let's focus on leadership. Back to the top of the show this morning at the keynote, General Saltman. He got about 15 minutes into it. He started talking about organization and reimagining the Space Force, and then talking about acquisition reform. It's like, when did that become one of the top three? It's like maybe the state of technology is changing so fast, and the list of strategic priorities is acquisition reform. That's one of the top three, I guess, huh?
I think so, and in the world of AI, again, this is not a traditional enterprise back office IT solution. We're talking about bringing advanced capability to the warfighter at the edge. And at Virtualitics, we're trying to get as close to the warfighter as we can. That means that the technology has to move at speed. And one of the biggest blockers in the adoption is, frankly, the procurement cycle. Now, again, there's been a lot of great strides as far as improving the procurement path. I mean, obviously, with the SBIR programs, Virtualitics has been a great proponent of over the past few years. Now, with our Phase 3 production contracts, we're maturing. There's CSOs, there's organizations like DIU, which are all fantastic. but how do we get past that? How do we scale into full production, into program dollars, into the Palm cycle, where we can then it's like pouring diesel onto the fire and really get behind this in a meaningful way. We got to get out of the mindset of small Pathfinder, small pilot efforts. We know the problems that we're trying to solve for. Now we need to embrace them and move forward. And that's really a critical component. So I think things have improved. Are we there yet where we need to be? No, definitely not.
So acquisition is a big deal. We know that. Let's go back to Rob's Donuts. Well, you acquire something, but there's a lot at stake here, isn't there? I mean, this innovation can mean the difference between life and death.
It is, absolutely. In fact, I'll steal a quote here from Vice Admiral Cullen Green, who was the former Deputy SOCOM Commander, former Navy SEAL for about 38 years. Just really fortunate to have us for the day. He's actually our keynote speaker. And I've gotten to know him personally over the past year, and just such an incredible guy. He has a saying that he likes to use a lot, and we use this in naval special warfare quite a bit. But as individual leaders, as organizations, and frankly, as at the departmental level, either we adapt, we evolve, or we go away. And I think that is such a critical point to make, that at this inflection point where our adversaries are racing forward, it is a race, and we need to throw everything we have at it. And we have, as an organization, we have to be able to adapt. We have to have that organizational resilience and that flexibility. And we may not have everything solved for. We don't have to solve for 100% of the problem right out of the gate, but we can't wait. We can't afford to sit back. We got to move at haste and move at speed.
Pick up your phone, you read the news, and you read about some unusual situations. For example, in Eastern Europe, there was drones maybe kind of got off course and wound up in a country called Poland. And this is called asymmetric warfare. It's not a tank crossing a border. It's a 20-pound drone. I mean, so how do you deal when you're dealing with aircraft carriers and battleships? How can you deal with a small drone? I mean, this is asymmetric warfare, which completely new and completely innovative.
Yeah, I think that's a really good maybe a corollary to the world of startups, as specifically VC backed. We like to refer to ourselves as asymmetric upstarts because we really are taking this problem set by storm. I think the traditional path of try a little, experiment a little, multi-year long efforts that really bear little fruit. That's not going to get us to where we need. We need to leverage the capital from our investor community that are absolutely excited to jump into the Department of War space. This is a critical time. So we have access to that capital. How do we put that capital to work? How do we push through the traditional barriers, the bureaucracy, the layers to bring these capabilities forward at a speed that the department, frankly, hasn't seen before? We talked about this in the last podcast, and I think that's really the benefit of what we're seeing is no different than on the battlefield. We have to look at these problems asymmetrically. We have to adapt. We have to evolve, or ultimately things are going to go away.
Well, we're at the floor here of the cyber conference, and all kinds of big companies, many small companies. 2 weeks ago was Ed Billington. It's exclusively cyber. They were big companies and they're small companies, and it's hard to know who to collaborate with, who to partner with. So is partnership and collaboration important for you? Do you pick and choose what innovative startups to use, or how do you know who to partner with?
It's a really great question, and that was actually one of the key themes and key topics that we discussed at the FAR Summit. It's not enough to just embrace partnership, lock arms with maybe a few smaller companies to move forward, but we do need some of the larger companies like a Microsoft or like an Amazon Web Services, where there's the infrastructure that they can bring to bear so that our AI applications, our AI utilities that can run on top of that infrastructure, we have all the support mechanisms in place. Some of the other partnerships that are really critically important to us are those that have maybe a global presence. We're looking at taking these capabilities across the globe. We know that there are many NATO allies that are also suffering with some of the same readiness challenges, and these capabilities can absolutely help. So critical to partner with those organizations, those companies that have that reach and can help with the training, the sustainment, the enablement of these capabilities as we continue to push forward.
Now, readiness can mean 10 different things for 10 different people. So readiness could mean that your data sets are not biased. Readiness could mean that when you transfer data, it's not going to be attacked. I guess readiness could be all kinds of different things. So it's almost like the mid-90s, if you remember. They just introduced web browsers. No one knew about vulnerabilities, and it was attacked. So we're right in the middle of a sea change here, and it's hard to know how to be ready because it's too much to worry about.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up again some good points. I think these are things that are becoming acutely familiar with senior leadership across the department. I think for many years the focus was on just buying more newer military equipment and hardware, and the logistics tail, if you will, kind of lagged behind. I think right now we're seeing where again mission capable rates are in the low 60%. So you've got aircraft in many cases that can't get off the ground, ships that can't get out of dry dock. You have personnel that are not trained and ready to support, and so all these things come together to really impair or degrade overall readiness. So these are some of the things that we're looking at, not just kind of at the service component level, but even much higher than that. How do we look at building out almost like a readiness picture that really shows what are the blind spots, what are the things that I don't know about as an operational commander. I may think I know what my readiness posture is, but I haven't considered all these other variables and all these other factors and how that plays into my overall ability to support the mission.
And why it's almost mandatory for DoD leaders to think about predictive analytics and artificial intelligence is because of some maintenance issues. There was a CNBC report maybe a month or two ago, and it talked about aviation maintenance technicians. They're going to be in short supply here real soon, and so one way to counter that is to use artificial intelligence to be able to predict when maintenance is going to happen. All of a sudden, you win on both areas, don't you?
Absolutely. And I think when it comes to things like asset availability, supply chain resilience, really driving toward decision superiority, these are all on the same line as terms of criticality. And AI provides the strongest lever, if you will, that we have to ensure that U.S. forces are prepared.
Well, the last meeting you folks had was about frontiers for AI readiness, but there's another one coming down the road. What's the next one coming up?
Yeah, good question. So again, this was our call to action. This is really where we wanted to start. And so now we are looking at, again, driving this partnership even further with across industry. We're really looking to build a coalition or a cohort, if you will. It's great to have conversations. It's great to have discussions. It's great to demo. How do we take this all and move it into action? Again, how do we take what our current DoD customers are already doing? How do we extract those lessons learned? Because through the readiness continuum, and that's how I like to look at this, is really it's a continuum of the gaps in the readiness cycle. There's a lot of great lessons learned, and I think many of these service components are entering into this, utilizing and leveraging AI technology at different time intervals, and that's okay. But then how do we learn from what the others that have gone before us, so we're not repeating the same problems, we're not reinventing the wheel every time? And so I think that's kind of how we want to focus the follow-up in this consortium. Let's bring in the developers, let's bring in the operators, the ones that are deep in the mission, and let's do a 24-hour workshop where we're actually solving a problem together. And the learning that takes place over that period of time, that's how we start to really move forward.
And that's what the general said this morning. He said, let's take acquisition and bring in an operator and have them paired with acquisitional professionals so that at least they know the right terminology and what to do. I mean, how can you ignore the people who've been out in the field? I mean, that seems to be the key.
Yeah, absolutely. So, some of the things that really excited to get in with you here, maybe on our next round, but how our technology is also evolving. I mean, bringing insights to bear, using AI to triage and provide various recommendations. That's really important, and the explainability component behind that. I need to understand, how is that course of action recommended? How did the AI present that, and the why behind that? I want the context. But even more important to that is I want to be able to interact with my data in natural language. I want to be able to ask questions. If I know what the outcome is that I'm trying to drive forward, maybe I need to dispatch a strike package to some part of the world in a period of time. I want the AI to provide the recommendations, and I want to be able to ask questions in natural language and be able to query that. That becomes very, very compelling, again, for those operational commanders. So that's what I'm really excited to get with you next.
I've got to ask you one simple question before we end. I was walking around the show floor here. There's a company from Brazil. I saw some people from New Zealand. I guess there's people from Japan walking around here. So when you collaborate, I mean, it's very possible that there may be advances in drone technology that's not necessarily based in the United States. And so how do you incorporate that into collaborating and learning from other people? It's got to be a tough juggle.
Yeah, and again, we're keeping a close eye on where our NATO allies are and how they're adopting technology. I think we can see firsthand what's happened in the Ukraine. There's a strong appetite to move forward, and they're not waiting because they know what's on the line. And so really excited to start to look to bring some of them, our NATO allies, in and make them part of the conversation. I think we can see, on the autonomous systems, when we got drone aircraft, we have autonomous surface vessels, there's ground tactical vehicles that are all unmanned. I think this is kind of, again, part of the new frontier. How do we look at supporting those systems? How do we look at sustaining those assets? Some of those are one-way assets. We don't anticipate getting them back, but many of them they do. They are going to have a sustainment and a logistics tail behind it. How is AI being leveraged to ensure that those assets remain healthy? That's really, really important. Plus all the information that's being collected on those assets. How do we distill that information? How do we look for the patterns? How do we find the anomalies and then parse through that data, get to decision-grade information, and then be able to share those insights as rapidly as possible? And so, again, that's what we're really excited to grow as a company and where we're aligning our sights next.
Rob, a lot of people are listening to this podcast. Maybe they're walking their dog, maybe in the squat rack, maybe, I don't know, they're running or something. And what I'm going to do in the show notes page, I'm going to put a link to this, which you mentioned earlier, Virtualitics Iris, which are agents to advance mission readiness outcomes, and they can find out more about that. And stay tuned, because this is a story that's really just beginning to be told. There's so much going on. I mean, Just take a look at the edge technologies. Just look at outer space. Just look like we're on this conference here. So many concepts that I don't even know if we can get to them in 10 interviews, can we?
And I think that's the exciting part of artificial intelligence, John. Right now, capability is rolling out so fast. And as we talked about previously, we see the world in terms of days, in many cases, frankly, hours. And so every week, there's new features, new capabilities we're rolling out. And so that's what's really exciting. It really is kind of the new frontier of AI, and Virtualitics is really excited and proud to be a big part of that.
Very great. You have been listening to the Federal Tech Podcast with John Gilroy. I'd like to thank my guest, Rob Bocek, the Chief Revenue Officer at Virtualitics.